Sup? Welcome back to the Pylon YouTube channel. Been watching a lot of Tyler 1. That's why I said that. We got our first 2-round mock draft. Also, it's my mom's birthday, so happy birthday, Mom. We got our first 2-round mock draft. I went through and already did it, because if you watch this channel a lot, you know I'm a talker, and this video will probably be about 3 hours long. So I went ahead and just went through it. We're going to go through the first round pretty quickly, like quicker than we usually do, and then we're going to talk through more of the second round. But anyway, guys, like, comment, subscribe, do all that cool YouTube stuff. I got a lot of cool things coming to the channel. I'm going to try to get some content creators from each team and do a 7-round mock with them, because, I mean, like, I don't know the Lions better than the next guy or a Lions fan, and the Lions fan will be able to tell me, like, hey, like, this is my thought process, this is what we watched all season. Even if Lions fans watch the Lions all season, I don't know if that's true. But anyway, get ahead of ourselves. But our first 2-round mock draft is here. I'm excited. I hope you enjoy it. It took me a little bit. It was a really tough exercise, to be honest with you. But the Senior Bowl is here. So that's why I wanted to get this out this week, is because there's a lot we're learning from the Senior Bowl. A lot of people I thought were going to climb up boards definitely have done that in the Senior Bowl. So let's get into it. First pick is Evan Neal, Jacksonville Jaguars. I still think there's a pretty good chance this is Ike Mekwonu. And in the last mock draft, of course, someone else went out that week and did Ike Mekwonu as the first overall pick. But my reasoning, again, is you have Cam Robinson and you have Walker Little. If you let Cam Robinson walk, you have Evan Neal to be the tackle of the future for the next 10 years. But if you think you're set at tackle, you could go ahead and take Ike Mekwonu, who I think is just as good of a prospect. And in how my brain is putting things together with the Jacksonville Jaguars roster is it kind of seemed like they were recreating Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt with James Robinson and Travis Etienne to have this 1-2 punch backfield, and that's why I like Ike Mekwonu better than Evan Neal. But if you're going to try to transform into a more air raid offense, a more balanced offense even, Evan Neal is definitely the more polished, surefire bet prospect, in my opinion. At pick 2, we have the Detroit Lions, Aiden Hutchinson. So I think this is kind of just like a no-brainer. Like, if I think the Lions are going to take best player available everywhere they can. And I don't think they would be stranger to take a quarterback in the first or second round now that they have pick 32 as of right now. We'll see where that is, if that finishes as 31 or 32 after the Super Bowl. But yeah, I think this is Aiden Hutchinson. Unless Hutchinson goes number 1 overall, which I really don't think is going to happen, this will probably be KT. But I think they're just going to keep taking best player available throughout the draft. But pick 3 is the Texans, and I went with Kayvon Thibodeau. I know Texans fans in the comments have been crying for, not crying, like I don't mean in a negative way, but like voicing their opinion about getting offensive line. But again, my thought process is, if this was a real life scenario, I think you have at least another first and second round pick to address the offensive line. And we're not doing trades yet, but like a trade for Deshaun Watson is going to happen either before or after June 1st. If you didn't check my quarterback breakdown video of where I think where the top quarterback prospects in free agency or trade value or trade candidates will move, I'll link that video in the description. But for Deshaun Watson, like, he's going to get moved. That's why I think like Kayvon Thibodeau or Kyle Hamilton, who some think is the best prospect in the draft, in Kyle Hamilton, like he's best player in the draft. At 3, it's still rich, but like, if you're going to have that many picks to just build everywhere in a loaded edge class and a loaded offensive line class, like, I don't hate Kyle Hamilton at 3, but if I'm the GM, it ain't me. So I'll trade back for him. But pick 4 is the Jets, and I went with Charles Cross. And I know this may seem like, I know some people have Charles Cross like really, really high, and I know some people have him really, really low and think he's going to be a bust. I think for what the Jets want to do with Zach Wilson, it makes a ton of sense, being that Charles Cross is one of the most polished pass protection tackles in the class, and I think he would be like, I think the point with Zach Wilson, and you have Michael Carter and Ty Johnson in the backfield, like, I think they'd rather throw it to Michael Carter, who they want to be their feature premier back, then hand it to Ty Johnson and have him run in between the tackles. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's how I see it. And I know Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh want to build the trenches, right? But they do need tackle. They have Marcus Cannon and just gonna pull up their lineup real quick because I forget the other guy. And I think George Fant. No, Morgan Moses. Yeah, I think you can move Moses into right guard since he's playing right tackle and then put Charles Cross at right tackle. Or you put Charles Cross at left tackle and leave in. I think you just got to play Becton since you drafted him really, really high. But, I mean, that's kind of another thing with the Texans, too. Like, why I didn't go with Kwanu is, like, your number one running back is Rex Burkhead. Like, I mean, it doesn't make sense to get a run beast of a run blocking beast of a tackle who's also a pretty raw developmental tackle when you have no running back. Like, he's not going to help Davis Mills right away unless he just is a freak. But, I mean, that's just how I'm looking at it. Pick 5, we have the Giants, and I went with Ike Mekwonu because they have Saquon Barkley and because this team is just going to probably hammer O-line all draft. I forget exactly what I did in the second round with them, but it was interesting. I think Ike Mekwonu, they're going to try him out at right tackle, and if not, they're going to put him to left guard, and it makes sense with pairing him next to Andrew Thomas, and then, you know, seeing if they could run Saquon through the left side, which they really have not done under the Joe Judge, Jason Garrett era. They did not really run Saquon at all to the left or get it to him in space, and I think with someone with like Brian Daboll, who's going to utilize Saquon in space, to draft a Kwanu who has probably the best downfield speed of any tackle, it makes a ton of sense to me. It makes a ton of sense. He's going to help Daniel Jones and, more importantly, Saquon Barkley. Panthers, I went with Malik Willis. If you've been following Senior Bowl week at all, I said this like 2 weeks ago, and I'm saying it again now. Like, this is really the only quarterback, in my opinion, worth drafting. Not worth drafting, worth gambling on, right? And the Panthers are in a spot where, like, they could compete for the division now because Sean Payton's gone, Tom Brady just retired, if you didn't know. And the Falcons are in limbo. But Malik Willis probably won't be able to play next year. But to let him adjust the game speed and, like, I think Malik Willis as an athlete deserves to be top 10. He's a little bit small at 6 foot, but as an athlete, not as a quarterback, as an athlete, is definitely a top 10 athlete. Now, if you could just get the right coaching staff around him, he has a cannon for an arm. He's, again, I've said it like 4 times now, one of the best athletes in the draft. Like, I think in a division that's up for grabs, and you could potentially have the best quarterback in the division with Sam Darnold. And I don't mean that, like, I mean that as a joke, but like with Malik Willis coming up behind Sam Darnold, you definitely have the best quarterback in the division. If your competition is Jameis Winston, Matt Ryan, Taysom Hill, yeah, that's it. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Panthers. They need to build the O-line, like they need to address the O-line, but they have some money in free agency. Maybe they could go out and get, what's his name? I forget. The guy on the Saints, tackle for the Saints. But we'll see. I think the Panthers defense will be good enough to help them win that division as soon as next year. So to get a developmental guy like Malik Willis, it makes a ton of sense. Pick 7 is the Giants again. Tyler Linderbaum is the pick. I just think I was between him and Kenyon Green, but with Linderbaum being like pretty much a can't miss prospect, like you could argue positional value all day, but if you're the Giants and if you've just openly stated how bad your offensive line is, like, I mean, it's all over Twitter. Brian Daboll has mentioned it a bunch of times. Marcus, Joe Shane has mentioned it a bunch of times. Like, they're probably going to go to offensive linemen here. Tyler Linderbaum or Kenyon Green are the picks. I think Kenyon Green is probably one of the most polished, all-around, versatile offensive linemen. I can't really call him an interior O-lineman or a tackle because he plays everything except center, so I don't know where he's going to end up. For a team that has so many needs like the Giants, it makes a lot of sense to take Kenyon Green. But to get a center who's going to be there for the next X amount of years with your quarterback, whether it's Daniel Jones or not, he's going to develop into that captain of that offensive line, along with Andrew Thomas and hopefully Ike Mekwonu if it plays out like this for the Giants. Pick 8 is the Falcons, and I went with David Ojabo. I know my boy Jermaine Johnson is getting a ton of hype, and I did say he's going to creep in. I said top 12. come the measurements and stuff in the pro day. But Senior Bowl, he's already up there. Like, we'll talk about him when we get him, but to get to him. But David Ojabo, I think still has a higher, like probably the most potentially high ceiling of all of them, along with like probably only behind Kayvon Thibodeau. I think that this kid playing football for only 5 years, I believe, for 4 years, and to be as good as he is already, like, sky's the limit for him. I just wish he had a little bit more reps, and I want to see how. I know he's going to test out like a freak, like it's just guaranteed. My concern with him is the time, and like for the Falcons, they have time because they're like, I don't think Matt Ryan's capable anymore of winning that division just with how old he is. And like, that's no slight to Matt Ryan. Like, the division is so weak. I mean, his best opponent is Sam Darnold. So we'll see. But like, I think David Ojabo actually will help them win that division right away, just being with how bad the Panthers' offensive line is. And I don't know what the Saints are going to look like without Sean Payton. Like, I don't even think they've narrowed down any of their candidates. They could get Brian Flores. I know there's a bunch of stuff going on with Brian Flores right now. I'm just going to opt not to say anything about it because I don't know all the facts. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'd rather talk about football. Yeah, I like this pick for the Falcons. They need to go edge, so makes a ton of sense. Pick 9, I believe, is the Broncos, and I went with Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson has been dominating the Senior Bowl, if you've watched anything. I don't think he's lost a single one-on-one rep. He obliterated Darian Kennard in a one-on-one rep. Like, Jermaine Johnson is showing, like, why if you watch it, like, not everything is in tape, really, because coaching does come into play, but, like, sometimes you just gotta see it. And, like, when I watched Jermaine Johnson, like, yo, dude's a freak. And now he's just dominating at the Senior Bowl. Like, dominating. That's why I have him at pick 9. I think in Draft Network, he is now up to the number 12 prospect. I could be wrong on that, but he has flew up the board. Pick 10, I think, is the Jets again. Yeah, I want Kyle Hamilton. Again, there's a chance he's the best prospect in the draft, and like, they have 2 second-round picks, so you might as well just go BPA here. And if you don't know what BPA stands for, it's best player available. Go BPA, get Kyle Hamilton. Now you don't have to worry about Marcus May at all. I know some Jets fans are hesitant, to say the least, to take Kyle Hamilton at 3. To my Jets fans out there, I was watching, dude, I forget his YouTube channel. It was like Jets X Factor or something. Like, the guy's name is Joe, white guy, shaved head, buzz cut. Really smart kid. And he was fine with Kyle Hamilton at 10, and he had like crazy amount of viewers. So I'm sure if you're a Jets fan, you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, he was cool with Kyle Hamilton at 10. If he's cool with it, I'm cool with it. I mean, he knows about the Jets more than I do. And again, like, this is just arguably the best prospect available. Like, he was pretty low on Hamilton, to be honest, but at 4, not at 10, which makes sense. And then pick 11 is Washington. Report is they're going to take a huge swing at a QB in free agency. I don't know which QB wants to go play for Washington, per se, and like, that's no slight at Washington, the Commanders now. I'm just saying, like, if you go watch my QB prospect video, I think there's a lot more capable teams that are going to be just as aggressive as Washington to go get like Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson. Like, I don't think Washington quite has the negotiating power with the state of their franchise, if that makes sense. So I went with Desmond Ridder at pick 11. Again, like, I think from the Senior Bowl and really from the semifinals, Desmond Ridder has grown on me, and I think a lot of people's stock in Desmond Ridder has gone down. For me, it's only gone up. The athleticism for sure is there, which is I think the athleticism is probably the biggest factor for the quarterbacks in this class because of how weak the actual QB play is. So for me, like, I would rather take the athlete over the more polished quarterback because there's the way I'm looking at it is the quarterback play is not that much higher, and the athleticism isn't even close. That's why, like, if you follow this channel, you know Kenny Pickett has been my guy every single first quarterback off the board. And now I'm like, I don't think he stands apart that much more than these guys. Like, his quarterback play is great, but the athleticism, like, I don't think it's there. Like, Desmond Ridder can move, and Desmond Ridder had some very nice throws in against Alabama, and they were dropped, but that was not his fault. And he, like, Senior Bowl day 2, like, he has been popping off. I'm very curious to see how he looks today. I think he's going to keep trending up. I mean, the kid can move, and he's got pretty good arm talent. I just think we're over Kenny Pickett, Carson Strong, Sam Howell. Like, the ceiling's just way too low. Like, it's way too low. And in a division with Dak Prescott, like, who's the other guy? Jalen Hurts. But I mean, like, the Giants and Eagles are question marks at quarterback beyond 2022. And you're going to need a guy who can win the division. Kenny Pickett might be able to outduel Dak Prescott, but he's not the athlete Dak Prescott is. Desmond Ridder is the closest thing to being able to beat Dak Prescott or Daniel Jones or Jalen Hurts. Like, that's just how I'm looking at it. Pick 12, I believe, is the Vikings, and I went with Stingley. And I went with Stingley because, again, like, everybody is really low on Stingley now because of the injury concern, the lack of production in year 2 and 3, blah, 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 blah. I want to see how he tests. I think he's definitely still a top 5 talent. Top 5, and he should be picked in the top 5 range. I do think he's that good. I want to see how he tests, and I want to see how the ankle looks, but I do think he's going to get drafted much, much higher than this. But anyway, and like the Vikings are going into rebuild mode, like, well, maybe not. I think if they went with Jim Harbaugh or John Harbaugh, now I'm getting them mixed up. I think they probably would have tried to compete this year, but now they hired, oh shoot, I tweeted it. Who'd they hire? Let me see here real quick. They hired Kevin O'Connell. Oh, yeah, the Rams OC. So I think that was a really good hire. I just don't know. Like, they just have one of the worst cornerback rooms in the class. Like, it's, I mean, in the league, it's not even close. I think Stingley could be their one right away and probably play at a very high level if the ankle checks out. But anyway, pick 13 is the Browns, and I went with Treylon Burks. Like, it was between Treylon Burks or Drake London, and for me, like, let's just. Again, I don't think that if you go back and watch my quarterback predictions, I don't think they have this pick. But, like, they have the 5th-year option on Baker. Let's give them no excuses. And for me, they need a 1. Like, I've been saying it all, like, the past few months. Like, Jarvis Landry should not be your 1, and there's a very, very high chance he's not on the team next year. So, like, you need to get a sure 1. And for me, it's between Treylon Burks or Drake London to be that. Like, not a 2, not a slot receiver, like a 1. Like, you need a 1. And to me, like, to have a very physical, capable, raw X receiver, like, that's it. Like, Treylon Burks is the guy. Pick 13 is the Ravens. And I went with Jordan Davis just because I think for the Ravens, like, this is going to, like, they're a very capable team of putting players in the best position to succeed. And with how hurt their defense got, having a player like Jordan Davis where you know exactly what he's going to do, you know exactly where he's going to be, and it's just a matter of can you stop him, it's going to make the life of the Ravens coaching staff and their new defensive coordinator, because they got rid of Wink Martindale, a lot easier because they're not going to have to worry about stopping the run because Jordan Davis is just going to do that. Like, it's either he gets the running back or he doesn't get the running back. And, like, that knowledge of how his play style is going to work. And I do believe the Ravens are a team that could develop him into a pass rusher from the interior. And if that happens, like, Jordan Davis probably will end up as one of the best draft picks from the 2022 draft. But I like him on the Ravens. I think, like, in their hands, they could develop him into anything they want. And they do need to address the cornerback room, like, very badly. But they do have Marcus Peters coming back, and The other guy, I forget. But their cornerback room isn't bad when healthy. It's actually very, very good. They have one of the best cornerback duos in the league. They just both got hurt this year. So banking on their health, but this is the pick for the Ravens if we just assume everybody's healthy. And people might not like that pick, but go ahead and tell me why. Because you're probably right. Pick 15 is the Eagles, and I went with Trayvon Walker to address the edge. You need to get, like I've said this the past few videos. I'm at the point, if I'm the GM, if I'm Jeffrey Lurie or whoever their GM is, I don't care about Jalen Hurts anymore. Not that I don't care about him and don't want him to succeed. I'm not building my team around him anymore. Like, he's going to be my quarterback in 2022, but I'm building the best team, and if Jalen Hurts can make it, and he can make it work, great. If he can't, we're moving on. But we're going to put that next quarterback in the best position to succeed. So I went with Trayvon Walker to give us some help off the edge. And then at pick 16, I went with Andrew Booth. And it was between Booth and Gardner. And I've been saying that all the whole time I've been doing these videos is Booth and Gardner are very, very close. The upside with Booth is he's a way better athlete, in my opinion. I want to see how he tests out. He kind of has been out of the limelight or spotlight because of Clemson's poor play this year, but that's really not on him. And then Gardner is just more of a polished cornerback, excuse me. And the Draft Network has them ranked at 15 and 16. So they're right neck and neck with each other, like I've been saying. I just think with the Eagles in a position to win and continue to get better, I like the idea of taking a potentially higher upside player than Gardner. Gardner's going to be good, and I think Booth is going to be good too, but Booth unquestionably is a better athlete, and he has better ball tracking skills, etc. He just is pretty, he gets beat by physical receivers, is the biggest concern in my opinion. Pick 17 is the Saints, or the Chargers, and I went with Kenyon Green. Again, I went with Green because in this scenario, I'm assuming he's playing right tackle. And at Texas A&M, he's been a great right tackle. He's played everywhere, but he has been a phenomenal tackle. Again, I don't think he's anything flashy, but I think he's just one of the most solid prospects. I have no worries about Kenyon Green. I just know, and this always, the Chargers must be, blessed by God because, every time I do a mock draft, the Chargers are in a spot where they're getting just solid value picks. Kenyon Green at 17 is a very, very solid pick. I would like Kenyon Green probably to the Ravens if I didn't take Jordan Davis. Gardner, my picks would probably be Karlaftis, Jordan Davis, or Kenyon Green. Anyway, pick 18 is Saints, and I went with Kenny Pickett because I don't know where the Saints are going to go moving forward. Jameis is on a 1-year, or I think he's on a 2-year, but they might trade him. I mean, depends what the head coach is coming in. What does he want to do? Does he want to build his own regime? Is he not care about Jameis at all? What does he want to do? They're in a terrible cap situation. I don't know what they're going to do. I went with Kenny Pickett because I think it just makes the most logical sense of new head coach. And really Sean Payton kind of was the GM as well. So basically a whole new regime. They need to get a quarterback. I like Kenny Pickett for them. Yeah. Pick 19 is the Eagles, and I went with Drake London. I think you got to give Devontae Smith some help. And again, I don't trust Jalen Hurts' arm. But if anybody's going to go out and make a contested catch, it's Drake London. So I went with Drake London. I think it actually gives the Eagles a pretty solid receiving core with London, Smith, and Quez Watkins. Pretty underrated slot receiver, in my opinion. His production is nothing crazy, but he's solid. He's fast as hell. But anyway, Drake London, Smitty, that. If Jalen Hurts can't win with that, I'm sorry. You just can't play quarterback. I don't know. Put on 20 pounds and go play running back. And I'm not trying to bash on Jalen Hurts. There still is a chance he pans out. I just think to have 17 passing yards in a playoff game in a quarter is pretty bad. Number 20 is Pittsburgh Steelers. I went with Trevor Penning, and the Steelers are in a very interesting spot for me because their GM is stepping down, but they're letting him draft. And to me, that just completely narrows your GM candidates to peanuts. Now, there's a chance that a GM could be a young GM candidate could see this and be like, oh, well, the Steelers are a successful organization. This GM is going to put me in a really good spot for next year. They could see it that way. But to let him draft and then move on is just really weird to me. But I'm just going to go with what I keep thinking is best, and that is to just build around Najee Harris. We don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like. I think they're going to go out and trade one. But considering they're not, I went with Trevor Penning, just a big tackle who just is a mauler in the run game. I just think it's a very good pick for the Steelers. Pick 21 is the Patriots. I went with Jameson Williams. I could have went corner here with Gardner still being on the board, right? Yeah, Gardner's still on the board. But I just think that, like, especially in the playoff game against the Bills, like, you need to have receivers that could catch the ball. Like, Mac Jones played a pretty decent game. He didn't play a great game, but there were a ton of drops in that game. And I think Jameson Williams is going to be a player that is going to allow Mac Jones to do everything. Like, throw it underneath, throw it over the top, take the top off the defense. Like, I think he's just going to be a very nice offensive chess piece for the Patriots and for Bill Belichick. Pick 22 is the Raiders, and I went with Ahmad Gardner. They went with Josh McDaniels. So this actually might be a wide receiver. However, we don't know what's happening with Derek Carr yet. We don't know if he's moving on. We don't know what's going on with Derek Carr. And if they do they go out and get, per se, Jimmy Garoppolo to try to compete now? And if they do that, I think taking Gardner as a value pick right here is a great, great pick. And if not, you're going to have him for the next 4 years and let him be the backbone of your secondary. So I thought this was just a very good value pick. You do need to address the offensive line, particularly the tackle position, the right tackle position. But Gardner kind of was just too good to pass up. Like, you could go Bernard Raymond here, and I really would like that pick if you were going into a rebuild because he's very raw. There's a lot for him to do to develop, but I just thought Gardner was way too good to pass up. Pick 23 is the Cardinals, and I went with George Karlaftis. He fell really far down the board for me. I guess I'm just really low on him. I just think he's very one-dimensional. I don't think he has a high ceiling. His production's there, I'm not going to lie, but I just don't know how consistent he'll be in I was about to say the NBA, the NFL. He just worries me. Like, I think he's going to be a good edge player, but I don't think he'll be more than that. Like, I think that's it. That's all he got. Good. He's going to be good. He's not going to be great. He's not going to be bad. He's going to be average, I guess. But I could be wrong. Like, this is a player, like, I'm very worried not worried I'm going to be wrong because I'm not scared to be wrong, but I just am very uncertain about him. Because, like, you have NFL executives, or not NFL executives, NFL scouts who are really high on Karlaftis. Then you have, like, YouTube, who's really low on Karlaftis. And common sense would say, oh, trust the scouts. But even the Draft Network's draft board has dropped Karlaftis down a ton. So I'm getting a little worried about him. But I think it's a good pick for the Cardinals. They have J.J. Watt, and, like, he's just injured all the time. He's old. But anyway, 24 is the Cowboys. This is an interesting pick. And it's going to seem like a dumb one, but let me explain. I just want to pull this up real quick to make sure I am saying everything right. Okay, cool. So I went with Devin Lloyd. And hear me out. You have, what's this guy's name? Luke Gifford, who is playing your Sam linebacker. And he's just not that good. And I understand you need edge help. And you have Randy Gregory there. And DeMarcus Lawrence. And Micah Parsons. Right? But if you put Devin Lloyd either at weak side linebacker or Sam linebacker, keep Van Der Esch at the mic, your defense, you can move Parsons around, which is the key to all this. Parsons was one of the best edge rushers in football this year. Not as a rookie, in all of football. if you could, and he's an upgrade over Randy Gregory, if you put him at right end or left end, however you want to do it, and you have Lloyd in the middle, you're not skipping a beat. You're upgrading your edge because you have Parsons. You're just moving him to edge, where he already played very well this year. Very well. And I understand you need safety help, and cornerback help. But I think for your edge issue, which is one of the biggest needs in football, is to have a dominant edge, to put Parsons at edge, like almost always, or you could just do, like, also, Lloyd is a great pass rusher coming through the gaps, right? To line Parsons up off the edge and, like, have some stunts go in, drop Parsons back into coverage, have Lloyd come down, like, it makes your defense that much more confusing. And if Dan Quinn is as good as a defensive coordinator as everybody thinks he is, he should be able to make this work and make your defense a lot better. That's just my thoughts on this. If you're a Cowboys fan, you disagree, like, please tell me why. I think it's pretty sound logic from a football mind, but let me know. Holla at me. Pick 25 is the Bills, and I went with Zion Johnson, another player from the Senior Bowl, just flying up draft boards. He's been balling out, and I really wanted him to go into the second round, but he's just too good. Like, he's just way too good. He's dominating at like him and I forget if it was Kingsley and Aguirre or Jermaine Johnson. Apparently, is like the best matchup to watch in one-on-ones. Like, it's just like the best of the best in the Senior Bowl at the what's weird about the Senior Bowl is they didn't bring any centers. So if you're seeing anything bad about Zion Johnson, I forget who the other one is with him, but they're basically for every rep in the team reps, they're like, all right, you play center, like, and then the other guy, you play center. So there's no true center. So if you see anything bad, try to be mindful of that like they might be in the center position for the drill. But when he's lined up at the guard, I think he plays particularly right guard. He's balling. He is balling out. And I think for the Bills, like, yeah, like, what? Pick 26 is the Titans. And I went with Kobe Dean. Again, like, a lot of people are low on him because of his size. I don't think it's going to matter at all, man. Like, this kid can go coast to coast in the blink of an eye. He's great in run defense, especially for outside runs. Like, this kid is really, really good, and I just don't think his size matters that much. In the words of Yoda, size matters not. Anyway, pick 27. I went with Sam Howell. And the reason being is they have Kyle Trask. Tom Brady's retired. I think Sam Howell can arguably be better than Kenny Pickett. He's surprisingly mobile. He's going to have Bruce Arians there. He's going to have Mike Evans there. He's going to have a great offensive line there. He's going to have a solid running game. But now with, like, Bruce Arians might retire, Leonard Fournette might walk, there's just a lot of uncertainty for the Bucs, and I'm, like, really confused. Not confused. I'm just really trying to figure out where they're going to go and, like, which direction, because, like, there's a lot to unpack with the Bucs moving forward, being their coaching situation. Bieniemy's probably going to leave to coach the Jaguars. Like, there's just a ton going on with the Bucs, and they're probably going to have to start a rebuild now. That's why they need to, like, start. I would be asking Bruce Arians every day, like, what's your plan? What's your plan? What's your plan? Because, like, I need to, if I'm the owner, I need to know what I'm doing. Like, do I have to get a new GM? Do I have to get a new head coach? Like, Bieniemy's probably going to leave. Like, I need a new offensive coordinator. The longer they wait on this, they're just going to hurt themselves. So, like, they need to be proactive. I don't know. Like, Bruce Arians is probably sipping a martini somewhere. Like, doesn't care at all. He probably in his head is retired. Pick 28 is the Packers, and I went with Jahan Dotson. And a lot of people are going to say, like, oh, he's not, like, Jahan Dotson's not that good, blah, 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 blah. This kid, I think if I was to pick a bust-proof receiver, it's Jahan Dotson. He's not the flashiest. He's not the sexiest. But this kid, like, is just so fundamentally sound. And his catch radius for his size is so much bigger than people want to give him credit for. Like, and, like, think about this. Like, If you do a mock draft at home, if you like doing for fun, and then check out these channels like mine or whoever you're watching, you're not going to see wide receiver as a premier need for the Packers. Devontae Adams hasn't left yet. That's going to happen. And people keep saying oh, Aaron Rodgers is going to stay. No, he's not. You guys are $45 million under the cap. You're going to have to wipe half your team off to make it work. You're going into a rebuild. I could argue you could go quarterback here. I actually went Malik Willis in the last one. But you need to get a receiver, dude. Scantling can't be a one. Who's the other guy? I forget. But without Devontae Adams, your receiving core is trash. Let me see. Because this is going to bother me. What is his name? Randall Cobb. Yeah, that's not what I'm thinking of. Marcus Valdes-Scantling. Oh, Alan Lazard. That's who it is. And St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown's brother or cousin or whoever it is. Receiving core is trash. It just needs to be upgraded. 29 is the Dolphins, and I went with Garrett Wilson. I could argue Garrett Wilson is better than Jahan Dotson, sure. But the Dolphins need weapons. They need to upgrade their offensive line, but they need to give Tua a fighting chance. They also have great cap space. They could go buy offensive linemen. I would, and the big question marks around Tua is you need to find out what Tua can do with weapons. Because his only weapons were Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki. You didn't have, I never believed in Myles Gaskins. I think your other running back is he was the backup for the Rams last year behind Darrell Henderson, and he was hurt all year. And then you had Garrett Dokes, who didn't even play at all. So you had no running backs. You have no offensive line. You have one wide receiver and a tight end who's leaving, probably. I think you need to start building up this offensive line and getting weapons. That's why I went with Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson is probably one of the best receivers in the class. I'm just kind of trying to factor in not who's the best, but what does the team need. That's why I went with Burks and London over Wilson. I would argue Wilson could definitely go to the Eagles, but I think Drake London complements Smitty way better. And Jalen Hurts because he's inaccurate. No slight to Jalen Hurts. It's true. Pick 30 I went is the Chiefs, and I went with Daxton Hill. The second safety off the board, I think Daxton Hill is going to be a good Tyrann Mathieu replacement. He could play free safety and strong safety. He's very good. He has that center fielder capability to drop back in coverage, but he's also very good coming out of the slot, playing the underneath. He could do pretty much everything. And you can definitely go edge, but again, this edge class is so deep. Just get it later. Daxton Hill, I like it. You could go edge here. We'll see what they do. Pick 31 is the Bengals, I believe. Yep, and I went Daniel Falele. He's someone who's also having a very good Senior Bowl. A lot of people are kind of some people are saying he's not doing as good as they thought, but some people are saying he's playing really well. He came in at 6'8", 385, but looks skinny, which is weird. I've heard someone say he could put on more weight to look fat, but that doesn't make sense. He's playing very well. He's a very sound tackle. I think, again, the Bengals could go with Bernard Raymond since they've made it so far. They have the time to develop him and still be competitive. But I like Falele. I think he's moving up boards, and I think he's having a pretty solid Senior Bowl campaign. And then at pick 32 is the Lions with the Rams pick, and I went with Chris Olave. Chris Olave has moved down to the Draft Network's board even, and I've been kind of low on him all year. I'm actually getting higher on him as we progress, but I just think the Lions need to take a receiver here. I could argue you go George Pickens, but Olave has that potential to play and attack the intermediate, kind of out of the Y or the X. The X or the Z. But to each their own. George Pickens or Chris Olave is definitely the pick here. Then, going into the second round, finally, we have the Jaguars on the clock, and I went with George Pickens. Now, my reasoning is you need interior D-line help, but we're focused on developing Trevor Lawrence. Let's get this kid in a position to succeed. You have no weapons. DJ Chark is leaving. Marvin Jones is old as dirt. They've ruined Chenault. Pickens could be a 1. I think Pickens could be a really good one. And we've seen how well this has turned out with the Bengals and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow. Both were drafted in the same class. Both were the first pick of each round. Let's see if the Jaguars can recreate it with Trevor Lawrence and George Pickens. I think they can. I think this is actually a really, really good pick. They need receiver help. And if you get Bieniemy, whew. And they were working ETN out of the slot in wide receiver drills at the beginning of training camp last year, if you remember. So I like this pick a lot. Like they need a receiver. Chark's going to leave. There's no point in paying him. He can't stay healthy. I like Chark, but no point. Pickens could play his role, and he's probably going to be a better talent than Chark. I'm really high on Pickens, and I think if he falls to the Jaguars at 33, whew. Anyway, pick 34 is the Lions, and I went with Trent McDuffie. Just kind of crazy, like how many corners are starting to fall because of like developments and hype. A lot of this stuff is tentative to change, like that should go without saying, but like as players generate hype from events like the Senior Bowl or Pro Day, like this board is going to continue to shuffle. But I could have went quarterback here, but Carson Strong had a really bad Pro Day, and I don't believe in Matt Corral anymore. Like he just doesn't exist, is what I'm saying. I'm just kidding. But like if Desmond Ritter's gone and Malik Willis is gone, there's no point. Like that's just how I feel. And Trent McDuffie, this would be a great, great pick to put along Jeff Okudah. I've argued the Stingley argument to put him next to Jeff Okudah at pick 2. But yeah, like this is now the Lions are starting to cook up. Like they've addressed their offensive needs, they've addressed their defensive needs. Now they're going to be able to make some noise. And the NFC North is up for grabs. I'm assuming, and I've already kind of locked it in my brain, Aaron Rodgers is gone. I think if he stays with the Packers, he's going to retire. I think if he leaves, the next best quarterback is Kirk Cousins. Like, up for grabs, the division. Imagine if the Lions won the division this next year. Whew, that'd be sick. Pick 35 is the Jets, and I went with Roger McCreary. Again, like a lot of these corners are falling. I don't know how realistic that is, but again, with Senior Bowl, like a lot of players are going to start to get hype, and it's going to affect players like corners because they're not seen as the highest positionally valued position. But, you know, Roger McCreary, great pick, should be a first rounder, but if he falls to the Jets at 35, you have Michael Carter in the slot. He's working out great. Like, this is going to be huge for the Jets to get your right tackle of the future or your left tackle, depending on where you want to put him. And then you got your safety, one of the best prospects, if not the best prospect in the class, and now you have one of the best corners in the class. I like the Jets. The Jets have a very good draft going. But at pick 36 is the Giants, and I went with Cameron Thomas. He has been dubbed the he's been dubbed the Aiden Hutchinson of the Midwest, I believe. I think that's how it's saying. But he has just looked like a freak. He's easily been the best edge rusher in Senior Bowl, probably besides Jermaine Johnson. I think him and him are like, but again, like Cameron Thomas isn't the sexiest name yet. You know the Trayvon Walkers. There's not so much familiarity. He's someone who I could see creeping into the first round. But if he fell to the Giants at pick 36, Giants got a good draft. Pick 37, I went with Bernard Raymond to address the tackle. Again, you're in a position where you're developing the team. You're not going to be ready to compete for the division just right away. I think you'll be way better than you were last year, but this is a player where, like, you put him at left tackle and you just let him get reps. Just let him get tape, watch tape, make mistakes, and learn. And I think he has potential. Like, he could potentially be a first-round pick. This offensive line class is just so deep. Like, Bernard Raymond has only been playing tackle for, I think, 2 years. Great talent. This would be a great pick at pick 37, being that he could potentially be a first-round pick. And now you could let Laramie Tunzel or Marcus Cannon go away. I think Marcus Cannon, right? Is that who your other... Yeah. We're good there. Pick 38 is the Jets, and I went with Arnold Ebiketie since we didn't go edge rusher in the first round. And, this is someone who I've been really high on. I debated taking him for the Giants at pick 36. Both are having crazy Senior Bowls. Arnold Ebiketie has basically doubled his production from 2020 and 2021. He is a great talent. I think if Cameron Thomas wasn't balling out the way he was in this Senior Bowl week, Ebiketie probably would be the next edge rusher off the board out of the first round. I think both these players could potentially play into the first round. Just depends on what teams want them, what teams need edge help. Jets have a very good draft. They've addressed both sides of the trenches, and they got arguably the best prospect in the class, along with a round one receiver in the second round. Pick 39 is the Bears, and being that they just hired Ryan Poole, who was an offensive lineman, I think they know they need to get Justin Fields protection and get some offensive line help. Their cap space is always trash, and they never have a franchise quarterback, and they never have a good offensive line. I don't know how that happens. Excuse me, but Nicky P falling to round 2, he hasn't had the best of Senior Bowls. I think he's in the Senior Bowl, but I just know he hasn't had the best of. I don't know how to put it, but he hasn't looked that great since the tail end of the college season. So, I mean, they need help. And at round 2, he was a first-round talent not even 2 months ago, and now he's an early round 2 talent. So I think it's a steal of a pick. Pick 40 is the Broncos, and I went with Jaquan Brisker. You need a right tackle, but you also need a strong safety. I think free safety. Let me just double check the roster. Sorry. Yeah, you have what's his face? Kareem Jackson, who's going into his 13th year in the NFL, 12th year in the NFL. I think it's time to let him go and upgrade to a younger talent next to Isaiah Simmons, or not Isaiah Simmons. Excuse me, Justin Simmons. And Jaquan Brisker to play strong safety. Now you've addressed. Who did we draft in the first round again? I don't even remember. But you've addressed a position of need, and now you addressed another position of need. Okay, who did we take in the first round? This is going to bother me. Oh, yeah, Jermaine Johnson. So now you've addressed the edge, and now you got one of the best safeties in the class to replace a 12-year-old veteran. I think that's a good upgrade, and I think it's a good value pick. Pick 41 is the Seahawks, and I went with Darian Kennard. I'm assuming the Seahawks go into a rebuild. This is a team I think that could go out and grab Jimmy Garoppolo as their bridge quarterback. He's going to be pretty expensive. I think you just kind of blow it up. Russell Wilson's leaving, so I would get the offensive line right like you never did for Russell Wilson for your new guy, and I think that is going to be a good start, a good step in the right direction. But knowing Pete Carroll, this will probably be a defensive pick, which will be dumb. But anyway, and not dumb as in you have a great defense. I just mean dumb as in fix the offensive line. For Rashad Penny, for your next quarterback, just do it. You got to do it. Pick 42 is Washington, and I went with Jameer Salyer out of Georgia. He has just been playing fantastic. He has looked really good. And I think for Washington, they need guard help really, really bad. And some would argue that he is the best guard at the Senior Bowl. And I just think that, whoever you have at quarterback, you need to give him the right protection. And again, I think I went back and forth in this pick because, you could go receiver, but you need to fix your offensive line. Hold on, I'm going to just start this all over. Yeah, so at pick 42, I went with Jameer Slayer. He just looked like one of the best guard prospects coming up in this draft. He's generating a lot of hype. And I think with Brandon Sheriff, with the injuries he's had, I think you need to get a backup for him. Being that this stat exists, and I will try to find it, but when Brandon Sheriff doesn't play, you have a 30, you go from like a 52% win percentage down to a 13% win percentage. And that's just a right guard. I don't know how that's possible. But to give to increase that right guard depth and put him next to Samuel Cosme, who that should be your right side of the line for the years to come, I think it's a good pick. Salyer, I keep thinking I called him Slayer twice. Jameer Salyer has definitely increased his draft stock, and I think this would be a pretty good pick. You could go receiver here. I just don't really like. Well, I guess a good pick would have been David Bell out of Purdue because he'll probably play in the slot. Or, what's his face? Wandale Robinson to play out of the slot. You could argue that should be the pick. I just think with Brandon Sheriff affecting your win percentage that much, you need to get someone who doesn't let that happen. Just being honest. Pick 43 is the Falcons, and I went with Matt Corral just because, like, you need to get an heir apparent to Matt Ryan. And Matt Corral has fallen pretty far. Might as well gamble on him. You could run an RPO offense and see if it works. You're gonna Arthur Smith is a good offensive mind. You could see if he could cook up for Matt Corral and give him a year to learn behind Matt Ryan. I think it's not a bad pick, especially if you're gonna develop him. Pick 44 is Cleveland Browns, and I went with Myjai Sanders. He's had a very good Senior Bowl. My concern with him, and I think the concern with him, is his ability to stop the run, which he has not proven he could do. But he's looked very good in one-on-ones. Like, very good in one-on-ones. So I think his stock is increasing. I was thinking about taking him up here for the Jets or the Giants, but I think Ebiketie and Cameron Thomas have just been playing way better than he is. Way better. Pick 45 is the Ravens, and I went with Kingsley and Agbarie. Just being that, like, your defensive line now with Jordan Davis, Kingsley and Agbarie, and Adafe Owe. And is there anybody I'm missing? Like, that to me, like, that is a Ravens defensive line. At least that's what it just sounds like. And like, you have what's his face? Brandon Williams, who's going to be replaced by Jordan Davis. And then you have not Tyus Bowser. Derek Wolfe as your left end, according to PFF. And, like, not really looking at the PFF grades. I just got pulled up because it's easiest to find the names. I think Kingsley Agbarie is going to be a great edge rusher that could play at the end, or you come in, could play outside linebacker. But we'll see. We'll see how the Ravens use him, and I have full confidence that the Ravens could just draft for talent and make it work. Like, that's just what they do. Pick 46 is the Minnesota Vikings, and I went with DeMarvin Leal, and he fell pretty far. And I went with Leal because he's a versatile piece, and I thought about taking him to the Ravens in the first round, actually. But going with Jordan Davis, I didn't see the need to double dip at interior D-line. And I thought Jordan Davis was a more sure prospect. But to put him on the Vikings to help out Danielle Hunter, whether that's from the interior or coming in off the opposite edge, or replace Danielle Hunter on the edge, I think it's a good. This is a player who's going to need to be developed, and the Vikings are in a spot where they definitely can develop him. We'll see. I think one thing I should have kept in mind that I didn't for the Vikings draft is they did just hire an offensive coordinator to be their head coach. But they have a lot of weapons on offense with Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison. And their O-line's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. And Kirk Cousins, who their odds are going to keep for at least a year because he's so freaking expensive. I think he's like $40 million, even before June 1st. So, I mean, you're stuck with Cousins for another year. Pick 47 is the Colts. And I went with the receiver because Colts are in a position to win now. I don't think with Carson, like, they're going to gamble on Carson Strong, who's had a terrible Senior Bowl week. I think they need someone to help out Michael Pittman, and Mechie being able to come out of the slot or across from Pittman is going to help either Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Deshaun Watson if he goes to the Colts, or whoever goes to the Colts. I think it's going to help them out a lot. They need another receiver too, even for Carson Wentz. Like, they really only have Michael Pittman. They have Zach Pascal and Paris Campbell, but they have been so inconsistent. I think getting some youth in the receiving core is a very, very good idea for the Colts. Pick 48 is the Chargers, and I went with Devontae Wyatt. And the reason I went with Devontae Wyatt is because we decided to take, because Jordan Davis wasn't there, we didn't address interior D-line in the first round. I went with interior D-line in the second round, and Devontae Wyatt is a first-round talent. This is someone who I probably could have taken for the Ravens if I didn't take Jordan Davis and I decided to take someone else instead of Jordan Davis, like Kenyon Green, and then took Devontae Wyatt here. So basically would have just been the Chargers draft. But Devontae Wyatt has been very overshadowed by Jordan Davis, and he has looked great. He just looks great. He's very solid. And now the Chargers have their right tackle of the future and their nose tackle of the future, which is huge, huge help for the Chargers. Pick 49 is the Saints. I went with David Bell because he is an X receiver, and I think I said earlier he was viewed as a slot receiver. That's wrong. He's an X receiver. And I think we need to get Kenny Pickett a weapon if they go this route. And we also don't know what's happening with Michael Thomas. They might just move him off the books to clear cap. We don't know. And I think David Bell could be a one. He's not as talented as the other guys as of right now, but come pro days and come combines, everything might change again. Measurements do matter. The thing is, he's coming out of Purdue. And that's what I think everybody's going to look at and be like, ah. But for me, if you're balling, it kind of gives me and then you measure out the same way that these top prospects do, you're going to ball. That's just how I look at it. And sometimes I'm wrong and sometimes I'm right, but it seems to be a pretty reliable metric in my brain. Pick 50 is the Dolphins, and I went with Isaiah Spiller over Kenneth Walker because Spiller is a little bit bigger, he's a little bit heavier, and I think he's more of a 3-down back, where Kenneth Walker is going to be a feature back at first, a first, second down back, and maybe a pass-catching back on third down, but I think Spiller is more of a true running back, which is what the Dolphins need right now. They need someone who could just run straight. Because they need to get 2 of those short yardage gains on third down or second down to make those passes shorter. And Kenneth Walker probably could do that, but he's a little bit smaller than Spiller. Not that that's making a huge difference. I just have read more about Spiller being the one over Kenneth Walker, and I agree with what I've read. Not because I've read it, but I agree with what the dude was saying. And Spiller, he just looks really good. And he's at Texas A&M. Just looks solid. Pick 51 is the Eagles, and I went with Christian Harris. Now they've addressed linebacker. They didn't have to take Dean or Lloyd to still get probably the third best linebacker in the class. Here at pick 51. And now the Eagles, the Eagles team is really, really good. If these prospects even turn out to half of what they're expected to be, the Eagles defense is going to be very legit. Very legit. And now they got that one pick on Drake London. If Jalen Hurts cannot win the division with this team, you just need to move off of him. That's making the wild card and getting bounced again is not good enough. That is what the Cowboys do every year. So, Eagles got picks, man. And every pick I feel like I've made for the Eagles has been a home run to make their offense and defense much, much better. Pick 52 is the Steelers, and I went with Sean Ryan. Again, this might be, they might not have this pick because they traded for Jimmy Garoppolo or something. But, if we're going to assume everything as is, Sean Ryan having a great, I guess, post-college season, going into draft season, he's generating a lot of hype. He's been playing very well. And again, he is much better. And I was torn between him and the guy I chose next. But Ryan fits better in a run-first offense than a pass protection offense. And I think with Najee Harris, a questionable quarterback play, this is the pick. Just keep going O-line. Make sure you got a good O-line for Najee Harris to run through. And when you get that quarterback, it's going to make his life a lot easier. But pick 53, I went with the Raiders. And, okay, so it wasn't the next pick. I went Perrion Winfrey. Perrion Winfrey has been dominating Senior Bowl. Like, actually, like, dominating the Senior Bowl. He potentially can end up as a first-round talent, in my opinion. He's looked fantastic. Like, fantastic. He's probably just behind Devontae Wyatt in terms of hype, but I think they're pretty similar players. I think he could get into the first round or high up into the second. Pick 54 is Kaiir Elam. I kind of forgot, being honest, I forgot he was on the board because Draft Network has moved him so low that he was like not even, like I had to scroll to find him because I couldn't remember if I drafted him or not, and then I found him and I was like, oh crap. And I think this is a steal for the Patriots. I mean, if Kaiir Elam falls to 54, that's kind of crazy. A lot of people are down on him. I think you just need to. I think he's a player you got to develop, and I think he has a lot of the raw tools to be solid. And he has been solid in college. He just took a down year, and like that's fine to me. Like it's more of like, all right, well I know you did it. Now can we get you back to doing it? That's how I would look at Kaiir Elam. I want to look at him like, oh, he had a bad year. Peace, like you're done. That's very stupid to me. Pick 55 is the Cardinals, and I went with Kenneth Walker here. Now, probably could have took interior D-line or edge. I forgot what I took in the first round. But I think James, given you have Eno Benjamin and James Conner, you might be able to save some cap space moving off of Conner. I forget what his contract looks like. But I think Kenneth Walker and Eno Benjamin could actually be a very, very good 1-2 punch. And I think the NFL is trending towards a 1-2 punch offense out of the backfield rather than like your Derrick Henrys. Like I think that's a dying breed in the NFL. Kenneth Walker, though he's 5'10", he is, I think, 215, 210. I think he could be James Conner's replacement, and I do think that this healthy season of James Conner was a huge fluke. Like, James Conner has never been that healthy in his entire career, and he missed games this season. Like, this pick probably could have been something else. Probably could have been an interior defensive lineman. But with Winfrey and Devontae Wyatt off the board, I wasn't sure, and Kenneth Walker, I think, is a solid pick here. Pick 56 is the Dallas Cowboys. And I went with Lewis Cine. He's having a very good Senior Bowl, and he's just been generating a lot of hype. He's playing very well. Probably might go earlier in the second round, potentially, but the Cowboys do need a safety. They need to address their defense. I also would argue they need a new corner. Just because, like, Trayvon Diggs is great, but he did let up, I think, the most yards in man coverage out of every corner in the league. I think you need to put someone alongside him, but I think you also do need to address your safety room because I think 2 of your 3 safeties are leaving in free agency this year, unless you resign them. Pick 57 is the Buffalo Bills, and I went with Phadrian Mathis, another interior D lineman. He plays at Alabama. He's having a great Senior Bowl. He looks fantastic. And again, like I kind of waited for the second round mock because I knew everything was going to change come Senior Bowl, and everything's going to continue to change after this because we're just looking at seniors right now, and a lot of seniors are the ones generating the hype right now. And Phadrian Mathis is one of those players who's having a dominant Senior Bowl. And I think for the Bills to get a run stuffer, you have good edge room and you have great defense, and it looks like Leslie Frazier is staying. I give him Phadrian Mathis and let him cook up some sweet defensive schemes. Pick 58 is the Falcons, and I went with Kyler Gordon here. He's the corner alongside Trent McDuffie. He's been playing very well, and he's having a great Senior Bowl as well. Second round might be a little bit high for him, but I did want to, just put him in here, see what happens. Maybe he gets higher and I look smarter. But anyways, I like this pick. I like Kyler Gordon here to Falcons. Put him along AJ Terrell and see if you could have a lockdown secondary in a division that's very much so up for grabs. Pick 59, I went with Drake Jackson to the Packers. Drake Jackson has had a very, very consistent year. However, he's been historically inconsistent. So I kind of want to see how he tests. I want to see his Senior Bowl play. Just because, actually, I'm not sure if he's in the Senior Bowl. But I want to see how he tests because I want to see if he could continue that consistency in the NFL. That's my worry with him is is the inconsistency a true issue? Because if everybody's going to knock Kyrie Elam for one bad year, we shouldn't praise Drake Jackson, for one good year. That's my argument. Pick 60 is the Buccaneers, and I went with Martin Emerson, and this is really low for Martin Emerson. Emerson, again, the Draft Network board kind of screwed with me a little bit, and this is a corner who probably should go where Kyler Gordon went or higher. He has generated a lot of hype. I put him in the first round before in one of the mock drafts. He's just a very, very solid corner, and I think he, at Mississippi State, is going to be a solid draft prospect. At pick 61, we have the Bengals, and I went with Trey McBride. And I know they have CJ Uzoma, but Trey McBride, definitely could have been drafted higher, in my opinion. It probably should have been drafted higher. But he is the best tight end in the class. And I think that a tight end is going to go sooner than pick 61. Just my idiocy that I didn't take him sooner. But please be gracious. This is my first second-round mock ever. On YouTube. But, I think this is actually a pretty solid pick for the Bengals because he's a very good blocker, and he's going to replace CJ Uzoma. And I'm not sure what year Uzoma is or what his contract is. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Uzoma's in his 6th, going into 7th year. And he was a little bit banged up this year, I think. McBride's just going to make that offense way more potent than it already is with Higgins, Boyd, Chase, and Uzoma. They need to really fix up that right side of the line, but they're balling out as they are right now. So let's make our strength stronger is how I'm looking at this. And then at pick 62, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. And I went with Logan Hall. We needed to address edge. I think we could have done it in the first round. But I think that there is upside with Logan Hall. I'm just a little bit worried about him in his run defense. But we're pretty much picking in the third round here. And I think Logan Hall with the Chiefs can be developed into a very nice edge rusher. He's been playing fine and having a very good post-college season campaign. We'll just see how he continues to develop and what his trend is. 63 is the San Francisco 49ers. And I went with Darion Kendrick. Georgia has produced some very good corners the past few years. And I think Kendrick is going to continue that trend. Being picked at 63, the 49ers desperately need corner help. They got picked on by the Rams at the end of that game. And I think, to be able to stop the Rams, you need good corner help. You need to take away Odell Beckham. You need to take away Cooper Kupp and give the edge rushers time to get to the quarterback because the Rams do have a very good offensive line, and I'm assuming that they need the next step for the 49ers is to beat the Rams. They did it twice. They just got to do it in the postseason now, and I think corner is what's going to help them do that the best. Pick 64 is the last pick of the draft, I believe, and I went with Abraham Lucas. This was the player I was stuck between when I was picking for the Steelers. I went with Lucas because the Broncos do need help on their line. They need tackle depth. And that's pretty much the sole reason. It's going to make their quarterback's life easier, and it's going to make their running back's life easier, and it's going to give them necessary depth at the offensive line position. I don't really understand. If you know this in the comments, why is this kind of... why are the Broncos picking at 64? I mean, I'm assuming they traded with the Rams because the Rams didn't have a pick. But why are the Bengals picking at 61? I don't know. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. That's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed our first second-round mock draft ever. If you like what you heard, please comment below. If you didn't like what you heard, please comment below and tell me what I did wrong and why my pick was stupid. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. That's going to do it for this mock draft. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace!